Then I'm assuming I can create some issues with this image by stopping my viewing of the mask and putting something behind this. I hope there's going to be a problem with color or a problem with something like that that we might be able to deal with. If not, I'll open a different picture and try to create a problem. Okay? See, my job's funner because I can mess with the problems and just figure it out. It's when you actually have to get work done and like send something out to a client and the problem happens. I'm guessing if I do something like this, we should end up with a pretty messy. Okay, I can see this might not look, color might not look appropriate coming through the hair, that type of thing. I'm not sure if you, just right there to me it looks kind of purplish or something. This doesn't quite look appropriate to me. I'm not sure if that's disagreeable to your eye or not, but I'm going to act as if there's an issue with color there. So what are some of the things we could do? Well, there's a bunch of stuff we can do. Let's just look at a few of our options. First, we could create a brand new empty layer to put paint on. And so I'll go to the bottom of my layers palette. I'll create my brand new empty layer. And then I'm going to grab the paintbrush tool. And whenever you're in the paintbrush tool, if you want to choose a color to paint with, you can select it right out of your picture by holding down the Option key and clicking on your picture. Option clicking, what it does is it temporarily uses the eyedropper tool to grab a color out of your image to paint with. So I've just Option clicked on my picture to grab a color. And now if I were to paint with that color, first we're in hard mix mode at 20% opacity, so let's go back to default brush, which will make me have to re-grab that color. Okay. But if I paint that color in, it's just going to blatantly cover up my picture. So I'm going to have to be overly precise and careful. I don't want to be careful and precise. Before I paint, I'm going to do something that makes it so whatever I put in that layer only shows up where that hair is. And the way I'll do that is I'll go, there's a bunch of different ways of turning it on, but one is I'm going to go to the layer menu and there's a choice called Create Clipping Mask. When I do that, watch my layers panel. You see how I have an empty layer on top of the layer stack? That's what we're working on. Watch what happens just to the right of the eyeball icon for that layer. When I choose Create Clipping Mask, do you see a little down pointing arrow appeared there? That means that this layer is now clipped to this. So that the only place where things that I put into this layer can show up is where this layer shows up. In any part where this layer is hidden, this will be hidden too. So it's called a clipping mask. The two are clipped. There's more than one way of doing that. So if you've ever done it another method and you ended up with that little down pointing arrow, you did the same thing. Which means one of the other methods is just move your mouse on the line that separates two layers, hold down the Option key and click on it. That's another way of doing the exact same thing. There's usually more than one way of doing something in Photoshop, but if the end result looks visually the same, it's probably the same feature. I only mention that because if I don't, everybody asks. They're like, is that the same? And it's only with quick mask mode that they're usually wrong. It's just because to you, quick mask mode means red overlay. And red overlay is just red overlay. It's just when it's a selection, it's quick mask. Okay, so I got this layer. It's clipped to the layer that's underneath. And now let's see what happens when I paint. If I paint now, I can come over here. And here, I'll just paint blatantly over the head so you can see it. But you notice that when I get out here, it is not able to get into the blue background. Does that make sense? So I'll choose Undo. And it's a matter of picking colors that might be appropriate for here. It's not always the color of the hair that's most appropriate. Sometimes it's the color of the background. And I want to come in here and just do a slight paint over like that to get it to blend more with the background. Sometimes it's a huge brush and you go just the littlest bit out here. And what that's doing is bringing some of the color from the background almost as if there's a background that has color hitting it and it's reflecting off of the background and popping into here. But whatever it is, right now it's clipped so it only can show up where they are. And so if the background had any kind of a detail, we're not going to be seeing the blatant paint on the background. We're going to see only some of it on here. But sometimes that's necessary, either taking colors from the hair itself or taking colors from the background, putting it in can be convenient when it's clipped to what's underneath. Let's see what other kind of issues can we get. I'm guessing, let's see, we already did We already have that one up. Oh, here, I have a copy of this one. I have a copy of this one where some things were already done to it, and I want to see if there's any special things I needed to do to get this to look right. This image, you notice, looks like it has a bunch of layers. That's mainly because we have two versions of the picture. One version on the right, one on the left. I'm going to possibly get rid of the one that's on the right just to simplify. And then I got a bunch of layers in here. I'm going to turn them all off. And I'm going to just see what we have in here. Okay, I think this is an extracted version of the image, as if we went through the process we've done on multiple images. We did refine edge. We painted on the areas that needed it. Okay, so one of the things that we can run into is sometimes the hairy stuff will look like it's too bright on the new background. And when that's the case, here's how I lessen that problem. If you duplicate the layer and take whichever the two, your original or your duplicate, is underneath, and set the menu at the top of the layers panel that is found right up here, called the blending mode, to multiply, it can often help. Let's see how if it helped here. I just noticed I had it in here, but it doesn't look like on this exact background it helped. If you were in my last class, I think I used it where I had some trees, duplicate the layer, set the layer that's underneath to multiply. That's primarily if you notice things looking too bright. On this particular background color, that might not be the case, but I noticed I had one in here, so I assumed it might have been.